Hello there.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to episode 29 of In a Galaxy, where we watch all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. We're here this week once again with Meg Dowell. She's the associate editor for Youtini, the founder of the amazing Project Stardust, and the host of the awesome podcast Starboard Dawn, which anyone who is listening to this should definitely check out if they have not yet. This week, we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars, the episodes Clone Cadets, which is Season 3, Episode 1, Season 3, Episode 3, Supply Lines, and then Season 1 and Episode 1, Ambush. Don't worry, this is the chronological order, so let's take it away.
Yeah, I will say this. What am I going to say? Oh, yeah. We will be back to regular, order next week, because chronological order dictates that it's Season 1, Episode 2, 3, and 4, but this is our last, weird chronological thing for a while, so that's going to be fun. But, yeah, welcome back, Meg. We're so glad to have you back.
I am so glad to be back. I mean, I've only been on here twice, but, every time I come here, you just say nice things about me, so I guess I'll just keep coming back.
We have had to do that. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go. So, we're at Clone Cadets, which is, Jacob and I were discussing this before. It's a weird starting to the trilogy of episodes because it doesn't have anything to do with either of the other episodes.
Yeah.
It seems like a completely isolated episode, and yet somehow it's here. Let's just get into it. The moral, we got to talk about these. They're called fortune cookies, I believe. They're always important. They always convey what the episode's going to be about. And the moral is brothers in arms are brothers for life. So what do we think about this? What do we think about the fortune cookie?
I love it. I mean, they do a really good job, especially in the beginning of the show, to establish that the clones not only are human and matter, but their bonds, their brotherhood is so important to them, and it repeats itself throughout the series, and it's especially important when you get to the very end. So I just love that they're really hitting home with it.
My thing is, for an episode, this is just me, for an episode that, we'll get to this, seems so on the nose, they could have, I think a better fortune cookie, and I want to hear both of your thoughts on this, is teamwork makes the dream work. It seems like hitting the nail on the head at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jacob, your thoughts about the fortune cookie?
I didn't think about the fortune cookie, but what I will say is that I think this is a strong start to the trend that we see of, and I'm going to talk about this more later, but the idea of really, the show is really kind of setting up the clones way more, focusing on the individuality of them, mm-hmm. and as Meg was saying, the bonds in between them. And I think that really kind of sets the show on a different path from the prequel movies, which portray the clones as kind of this uniform force, and they don't talk much. Yeah, much more of a all the shining knights in armor lined up. And I think that if this show didn't exist, I think my experience of the prequel era in relation to the clones and the Jedi might be very different.
There's this there's this line in Ambush, which we'll get to later on. That cave scene, which by the way is my favorite scene in any of the 3 episodes we watched. Mm-hmm. And the 3 clones are we all share the same face. And Yoda's yes, but in the Force you are very, very different people. And he goes on to, and again, we'll get to this when we get to this, but he goes on to express all their specific needs, actually the analysis of Shakti early on in this episode about how the clones are weak and how they can improve to be a fighting force for the Republic. And it shows that just because you're cloned from the same person doesn't mean you are the same person, which I thought is a really interesting message, and something, even if Clone Cadets and Ambush aren't connected as stories, they are connected spiritually, I think, because of that. Okay, let's get into the episode. So the episode starts with Domino Squad doing their Citadel training course. I have a couple of logistical questions with this. It's in a galaxy. We all got to go with our logistical questions. So, first one, the Citadel. Why are they using the Citadel as a training course? We know they only ever have one mission to the Citadel throughout the entire war. And that mission, they lose so many clones. There are Jedi there. And also, the Citadel is so heavily guarded. It's the most heavily guarded, as we will find out a couple seasons later, prison in the galaxy, that they don't even have updated, like, maps and graphics of it because it's so secret. Any thoughts about that? That was something that just kind of confused me.
I would say, is it the same? Is it a replica? Is it meant to be a replica of the Citadel on Lola Sayu? I believe that's what you're referring to.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay, really, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's
interesting. I guess it would be. I guess they're saying it may not be universal, but at least we can model it on some separatist facility.
Yeah,
but one thing that I want to
never try to go there. It seems like why would they even,
One thing that I want to bring up, that I found really interesting and thought-provoking, was the introduction to this episode when the announcer was talking about how he was using lots of big words like these clones are like statues of bravery. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. I don't know what I'm saying really, but like the valor, that's their lifeblood. And that really interested me because I think intellectually watching this, we know that like everything's being manipulated by both sides. But then we see this show presented from a very heavy standpoint of directly good and evil, and that the Republic is good and the Separatists are evil. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think that what am I gonna say? Yeah, it's actually I gotta say I don't pay that much attention to the opening Yularen things. I'm just like, oh, there's another Yularen thing. Yay, cool. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just me. Any thoughts, Meg, on any of this?
I mean, honestly, I also don't always pay attention to the beginning speeches. No, but that's really interesting though, because I think like even because this is season 3, right? Okay, so I've watched this chronologically before. Wow, why is that word suddenly so hard to say? But it messes with me, especially in the beginning, because like, oh, we're in season 3 now, and then we're going back to the very beginning to season 1. I think like they just repeatedly have to like do everything they can to establish that like, I don't know, these clones like they are technically like slaves of the Republic, and like they're meant to be this like intimidating force, and kind of like the stormtroopers end up becoming. But and I think like they're very proud of the clones that they've created in this army, so like I think they just keep talking about that. Maybe.
Yeah, I think one thing that when you say that, what I think of is one way that we see the show evolve. I think the Clone Wars, one measure by which we can see it kind of maturing as a show and tackling more difficult themes is how we start to see the clones more as slaves, and we start to see these deeper or maybe harder to tackle questions about the morality of having clones.
Yeah.
And so I think that definitely is shown here, perhaps a little bit.
I think,
but more so later on.
Yeah, I actually really love, there's something I love about any training sequence in any Star Wars anything. We get Jedi training with Luke on Dagobah or Rey on Ahch-To and 8. We get Sith training later on in the Clone Wars with Dooku and Oppress, and now we get clone training. And of course, it's very different than both of them. One of the things I don't understand is who are these bounty hunters they're getting to train the clones? Like, we never hear about them any other time in the Clone Wars. There's even a point in the episode where I think it's Echo who asks, so, who are these bounty hunters they're getting to train the clones? Like, we never hear about them any other time in the Clone Wars. There's even a point in the episode where I think it's Echo who asks, so, who are these bounty hunters they're getting to train the clones? Like, we never hear about them any other time in the Clone Wars. There's even a point in the episode where I think it's Echo who asks, why aren't Jedi training us? And I'm like, well, I understand why Jedi can't train you, but Echo does have a point that, like, they got bounty hunters, but they got, like, some of the worst bounty hunters in the galaxy by virtue of the fact that we never hear about them ever again in the series.
Yeah. I don't know if that's, like, specifically a callback to Legends, but, like, what is it? Why am I blanking on the name of the series? The Republic Commando books, it's like a story about like a squad of clones. And like one of the main characters in those books is like their commander. I don't remember if he's like a bounty hunter, but like he is, or no, I think he's just a Mandalorian. But like it's kind of like the same thing where like they're not trained by Jedi, they're trained by these other hires, I guess. So I don't know if that was like a subtle like nod to that or not, but I always liked that because it does kind of make sense that like you wouldn't have Jedi doing all the training, right? Because like they have other stuff to do.
Yeah,
I think.
First of all, I'd like to mention the fact that I forgot about this. Meg, you're now producing that Legends Look Back on Youtini's Twitch channel.
I am.
So all the Legends knowledge of this episode is probably going to be coming from her. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it just seems like, I was like, they could get Embo, they could get Suga, like they couldn't get Cad Bane because Cad Bane doesn't like them. But it does feel like you can get any bounty hunters and you get them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Meg, you bring up a good point that it could be a callback, and the way I interpreted it was kind of it was kind of an allegory maybe, or just a little hint at the Republic's, I don't know how to phrase this, the Republic's and the Jedi's moral decline maybe. I'm not quite sure. But just kind of the fact that they're
12 minutes into the recording and Jacob's already bringing up the Republic and the Jedi losing their way. So right on schedule.
Sorry. I can't help myself. I love the Jedi, but I just can't help myself. But I think that I think that maybe in my mind at least, it was a hint at the fact that, look, the Republic and the Jedi are hiring out bounty hunters who, I mean, one of these guys, Brick, the guy with the large brain holder.
He's modeled after one of the Cantina patrons, right?
Yeah, he is. That type of behavior makes me think that, from Brick, makes me think that it is a hint that maybe the Jedi and the Republic aren't, I don't want to say not doing their due diligence, but maybe they
aren't doing due diligence
care as much as they should. I don't know.
I don't know. In this episode, I do feel like Brick, I know they wanted to set him up as this like obstacle in Domino Squad's way, but he seems overly harsh to me. He seems like taking actions like, I get it if you are distrustful and if they fail, they fail. I get that. I don't agree with that, but I get that. But it's like, why does he, like, the whole thing with Cut Up, that seems just like a really ham-handed way to tell an origin story that didn't really need to be there.
I kind of, so like with that specific part, because that's like the part in the episode where they're all kind of like, it's showing all of them trying to get out of their situation in different ways. So I feel like that was kind of like, what was I going to say? Yeah, I feel like with that part, it was really kind of just like establishing like, you know what? I lost it, but yeah, go ahead. Say something else so I stop talking.
I just feel like that is the one thing that this episode, even though I love this episode, I think this episode is a little bit clunky with, is like, I think it feels like it needs to establish all 5 clones, Droid Bait, Cut Up, Heavy, Echo, and Five's origin stories, so it has to plop them all into this episode. This is the Solo of the Clone Troopers.
Yeah.
Jacob and I will harp on and on about how much we hate that scene from Solo, even though we like Solo as a whole.
Yeah. One thing that I thought, if I can kind of open up a new
go ahead
conversation a bit, the fact that Shakti goes along with the behavior from Brick, from the sabotaging to him being really eager to fail them, that kind of, I found that illuminating, and that kind of put the Jedi in a different light for me. And you see that kind of this I don't quite know how to put my finger on it, but you see this kind of more dispassionate attitude from these more senior Jedi in the old Jedi Order, like Mace Windu displays this a lot. Like in
that's actually the weird part for
like
me.
In the
Shakti, she has a penchant for being like a very kind person. Yeah,
but like in the Martez sisters, when they talk about the Jedi who crashed and killed their parents, the Martez sisters' parents in season 7, and then just says, or according to the retelling, just says it's okay. The Force has a plan. That kind of, maybe I'm not quite sure what the word is, but that kind of attitude and that kind of approach is something very different. And maybe that's kind of why Anakin, maybe we don't see this a lot, maybe that's why Anakin is dissatisfied with the Jedi Order. Maybe we see a lot of these warmer type of Jedi in their attitudes and the way they intervene in different scenarios, like Kanan, Ezra, Luke Skywalker, even at times Obi-Wan. Yeah. But then this sort of detachment and her just saying, yeah, if you want to fail them, go for it. Oh, you sabotage them? Well, that's just the way life is. Now they're going to have to figure that out, even though Jedi would probably care about like the morality and the upstandingness.
It isn't fair. Life isn't fair sort of part of it. Also, by the way, that Jedi is Luminara Unduli.
It is, okay. That really puts that, that just changed my perspective of the Jedi, and that really kind of makes me think maybe there's part of the Jedi that we don't see a lot in the films, but that is being alluded to. And the way the Jedi are behaving.
Okay. Before we get on to any other big sweeping things, I want to get some low-hanging fruit out of the way. Just Easter eggs that I love. First of all, the training course, they set it to module THX variable 1138, which is very nice. I like that. I approve of that. It's a George Lucas reference. Yeah. Also, did you notice multiple times in the episode they call Domino Squad a bad batch?
They did.
Yeah, that plan was in there 4 seasons ahead.
I like it.
Yeah, that was something I caught. I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. There was something else.
I just need to say that 99 is my favorite clone ever.
99.
99.
I just love him so much, and like the fact that like his whole thing is just like, I want these, younger, more capable clones to succeed. Like, we're all still brothers. I want them to do well. And
I want them to succeed where I can't.
Yeah. Oh, I love him so much. That was the only other thing I had. Yep. Oh.
I thought his message was, when I was watching this yesterday in preparation, his idea of don't squander your connections. Don't let me see what it say. Said have your brother's backs, like in this time of the pandemic and everything that's going on that's made 2020 such a chaotic year. Mm-hmm. That just really hit me.
Oh man.
I will say this hurts because so 99 dies in the next episode of the released of the series, which is called ARC Troopers. We're not getting to that for a long time. We just skipped over the episode. It goes 1-3. So basically what I'm trying to say is for about 2 seasons of this show, 99 is still alive and we just have to approach his impending death, which we know is coming.
Oh, so sad.
So he's one of the good ones.
Supply lines.
Yeah. I gotta confess something. The other 2 episodes I've seen so much. This is the one I've seen the least. I'm not even sure if I've seen this episode all the way through, to be completely honest. I've seen clips of this episode, but it is my least favorite of the 3. But that's not really because of supply lines. It's because of how good Clone Cadets was and how much I love Ambush. Trust me. In about 20 minutes, I'm going to go full gushing over Ambush because it's like one of my favorite episodes of that show. But yeah, so the moral, where there's a will, there's a way. I thought of the three morals, this one was the most kind of like, okay, we get it. It was a little bit on the nose for me, but I don't know. I maybe wanted something a little more abstract or something.
Yeah, I kind of was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Jacob, anything? I know you didn't look at
I don't know.
fortune cookies.
I'm just gonna kick off this part by saying I absolutely love this episode.
I like this episode a lot too. Yeah.
I think it was I just remember from watching the Clone Wars the first time when I was maybe 12 or 11 when I was younger. This episode really stuck with me, and I think I absolutely love the way they did Toydaria with the cool spire surrounded by the low swamplands. And I just love I feel like this episode has a really strong this episode just has a really strong feeling like it's an allegory, and that it kind of it really sticks out to me as like this fight between good and evil. And maybe it's because I won't go into this too much, but maybe it's because it's election season and whatnot. But I just feel like the way that it's all wrapped up in all this intrigue, and there's so much lying going on, it just really I felt like I really connected to it this time, and I felt like it felt very prescient.
I know
to
you
our
love
current situation.
stuff a lot. I know you love.
I love Ryloth. I love
Lilac
Twi'leks.
Determined.
They're a cool species.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm least impressed with about this episode, I'm not gonna lie. So they sent a Jedi to defend Ryloth, and what is that Jedi's name?
Ima-Gun die.
Oh,
Gee, I
what?
wonder what happens to this Jedi.
Are you serious?
I
Oh,
wonder what's gonna happen. It's like the Tibety in Rebels. They couldn't name the bird something, so they just stuck vowels after TB and D.
I mean, like, I forgot that he died when I was rewatching this, and so I got like a little sad at the end, but I was like, but they totally set it up for that anyway, because like we
They
never
totally
see this
did.
Jedi, so
My like kind of headcanon about this, and I'm 99% sure this is probably right, is they had the Jedi dying first, and then they named him afterwards. It makes more sense, because
yeah, probably.
yeah. And yeah, let's see. So we get a lot of Bail Organa in this episode, and I love Bail Organa. Bail Organa is
Yes.
awesome. There's this feeling like, I don't know, he's never going to be my favorite character in Star Wars, because there are so many great characters, but like you always want to root for Bail Organa in the end.
Yeah. I like the Bail Organa Jar Jar team up seems like it wouldn't work at all, but like for some reason I love it. It's just like, I don't know why, I just get so much joy out of the two of them trying to figure this out together.
That's the thing. Actually, I will say this about this.
You hit the nail on the head there. So I think it's because they're an unlikely duo. You've got Bale, who's got a deep voice. He's very
Stoic.
composed. He knows what he's doing. He's confident.
And then you have Jar Jar,
he's
who's
no
so
nonsense. Then you have Jar Jar.
I will say this. If you had told me that we'd take three of my least favorite concepts from The Phantom Menace, Toydarians, Jar Jar, and Neimoidians. Oh, and Toydarians, actually, 4 of them. Wait, I think I said one of them twice. Never mind. Toydarians, Neimoidians, and Jar Jar. If you told me you could put 3 of those elements in an episode and have me actually love this episode, I would not believe you. But it actually happened. I think it's because they made all those elements like 50% less racist, so that's a good start.
I actually had that thought. But I think one of the reasons that works is that it's switching back and forth between Bail and Jar Jar and then back to Ryloth and back again. I think if they just stayed on
Toydaria the entire time,
yeah,
we could
if
not
they just
stand
stayed
this
there,
episode.
yeah, I don't think it would have been as tolerable. But because it kind of switches, and then there's like, because it's like the two conflicts going on, but like there's one that's like physical violence, and then the other one is like they're trying to do this like court debate. Like I think that contrast, I think it just makes it work.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I like about this episode is like how it kind of shows that it's basically in many ways, it's the same fight that's happening. It's the Separatists and the Lot Dodd, who is basically in league with the Separatists, even though he will never admit it.
Yeah.
And we're
that's the
showing
other
how
part of this episode.
these decisions that are being made in this court are going to directly affect so many lives. And I think it's interesting just to see the same fight, basically, in the same struggle play out both in a political arena and in a very, very violent military battle.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing about this episode, actually. This is my main logistical problem with this episode. This is the last logistical problem I'm bringing up, I think, which is that, Lot Dodd's actions in this episode don't make a lot of sense to me. So Nute Gunray is not publicly with the Trade Federation anymore, even though he worked with Lot Dodd. They're the same species, and they've been in the Trade Federation for years together, but nope, Nute Gunray is just far away from that, and they're totally siding with the Republic. Okay, that doesn't really make a ton of sense. That's my thing, is like, how does anyone actually believe the fact that Nute Gunray is not with the Trade Federation anymore? Because I don't think Bale does.
I think it's just hard to say. I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts about Ryloth?
Oh, yeah, I was going to go with Ryloth. Can we get an Ima-Gun die backstory, please? Like, seriously, I want to see more of him, because he actually does seem, in contrast with Shakti from Clone Cadets, he actually does seem like the kind of Jedi that, like, he does seem very Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan-esque. He has that kind of spirit about him.
Yeah, agreed.
He of course, at the end of the episode, he sacrifices himself to save the lives of Chamsadula and Gobi and Numa, which I will never forget after messing that up in trivia, Jacob.
No.
Yeah, what Twi'lek character was a major character in Rebels and the Clone Wars? Not thinking I said Ahsoka. Togruta. Very nice to me. But
no.
Yeah, it seems like all of my trivia questions are coming up these days. Or maybe I just notice them more. But yeah. Can we get my point is, can we get an Ima-Gun die and Captain Keeley backstory? Because they seem like good characters. I
wouldn't mind that. Ima-Gun die seems like a nice guy. Captain Keeley seems pretty tough and cool.
Yeah. I just thought about this. This episode is it's like, I'm trying to think if we get any other last stands or like clones or Jedi, like prominent Jedi just straight up dying like this in the Clone Wars, like other than Adi Gallia in season 5. That's a unique part of this episode, is like they just straight up die. This episode reminds me of Rogue One a lot in that aspect.
Oh yeah.
It's the harsh brutality of war. The heroes don't have plot armor in this case, so they cannot be saved.
Yeah, and I think also with this episode, there's the point that you can do a lot of risky things to save a few people, but you still can't save everyone. Because they got the supplies to them in like as much as they could, but like there was still death. There's still loss.
Yeah. Let's see.
One thing, if I can go off what Meg
Go
and
ahead.
Eli just said, one thing that I found compelling about this episode was the battle scenes, especially the opening scenes with the trench, and just the entire way that the battling was portrayed, and you had the Twi'leks and even some of their families, even though that's incredibly difficult to think about. It really just kicks it up a notch from the earlier seasons of the Clone Wars. It makes everything feel, maybe it doesn't make it, but everything just feels so much messier and desperate in this battle. And I'm not going to say it feels realistic, because it doesn't, but it feels much more visceral and intense, and it feels consequential in a way that earlier battles do not.
A couple of things, more low-hanging fruit for this episode, references and stuff. First of all, we have, I know Jacob loves this. I'm not sure how much you like this, Meg, but battle droid humor. I love battle droid humor. I know Jacob loves battle droid humor. So we got, of course, the excellent no clones in here, just explosives. Explosives! And then it blows up.
Oh man, I have a lot to say about droid humor in the next episode we're going to talk about.
Oh my
but
God.
I'm with you.
I think Jacob and I both have the same favorite battle droid humor line, and it's from Ambush. So.
Oh, I think I know. I think I know what I think we're all thinking about the same thing. Possibly.
I really hope so, because that line is beautiful. That line is honestly beautiful. Also, did anyone get a like when Jar Jar's distracting the Neimoidians at the dinner? Did anyone get the first thing that flashed in my head is we had negative. We have a reactor leak in boring conversation anyway. Luke, we're gonna have company.
Did you pay attention to like his mumbling when he was like picking up the plates? I'd never like listened to it before, but it's hilarious. I don't remember what he says, but it's very
This is why I'm glad subtitles exist, and I always watch with them. I actually was I watched it with subtitles, and I'm like, this is actually quite hilarious.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be laughing at Jar Jar, but here I am.
I didn't watch with subtitles, but I just remember him taking plates of food and saying, "Oh, are you finished with that?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?" And it was like nothing had been touched because everyone was trying to be polite because it was this fancy dinner.
Also,
so
Jacob, we should 100% add this criterion to the stacking pile of evidence that we have that Jar Jar is a Sith Lord.
I think this is Jar Jar using his clown powers for good, though. Because this is something that feels separate from the overall inevitability of like they're saving the lives of this war. They're saving lives on this, or they're trying to save lives and prevent starvation on this war-torn planet. That seems genuinely good outside of the inevitable arc of everything coming towards a Palpatine dictatorship. So I think this is maybe, or though maybe Jar Jar is just so many levels ahead of me. Like maybe he's got me completely fooled.
I'm still gonna believe he's the Sith Lord, like till the end, honestly.
Yeah. How can he balance all those plates?
How can he juggle those plates?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure of any human that can juggle that many plates, let alone a clumsy Gungan. Anything else about supply lines before we go on to what I think is the best episode of the three of these?
I think that's all from me.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things. I really was reminded of Leia in this episode, and I don't know if that was intentional, but the way they portrayed Bail, the things that happened to Bail, it really reminded me of Leia. And I know it's just a show, but it made me feel all warm and fuzzy because yesterday I was reading the Leia Princess of Alderaan book by Claudia Gray. Have either of you two read that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
So good.
I've read Claudia Gray Leia though.
Oh, Eli, you got to read it. Wait, Leia, I think we're talking about the same book. Actually, the scene.
Okay. Yeah.
The Mercy missions are a tradition of that family, and I love that. I love the way that in Leia she pulls off this incredible finesse in that book, where she goes to Wobani and she ends up not only delivering the supplies but hiring 100 refugees as crewmates to get past the Imperial regulations. And then Tarkin later tracks her down and says, basically without even, of course, in a very Imperial Tarkin-esque way, without even having to say anything really, just saying something about Imperial regulations, without saying nothing but saying everything that he knows what she did. Like when he says, when Lot Dodd says you're playing a dangerous game,
as opposed to the totally unsubtle way Lot Dodd does it.
Yeah, Lot Dodd just shakes his fist and snarls and whatnot. That just I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but I love the parallels.
We can even we can even tie it to Princess on Lothal Rebels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even though I actually like Princess on Lothal a lot better than this episode, but that's just me. Yeah. Anything else, Jacob? Or are we gonna go on ambush?
Nope. I think I'm. If everyone else is good, I'm good. Let's talk about Ambush.
Okay, I want to just talk about Ambush a little bit, about my experience with Ambush. This is the Clone Wars episode I've watched the most out of every episode. This is my favorite of all of these episodes. It's not my favorite Clone Wars episode, but I think it's like probably in my top 15 or 20 somewhere, because I love this episode so much. So our moral is great leaders inspire greatness in others, and I think this is the best fortune cookie of all three of them, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not completely on the nose, but it's not also not on the nose. And one of the things I love about Ambush, now watching Supply Lines before it, is how perfectly Supply Lines sets up Ambush.
Yeah,
they had the added benefit of creating Supply Lines after Ambush, but like still,
yeah.
it's a very good setup there. And it's funny because I think I've said this on Twitter before, because I'm not a big fan of the design of Yoda in Clone Wars or the voice of the Tom Kane voice of Yoda in Clone Wars, but I think they absolutely nail everything Yoda says. I think, Yoda's, I will get this out of the way, Yoda is my favorite Star Wars character, and so it's not hard to see why I love this episode so much, because it's just, it's I describe this episode to people as Yoda just doing Yoda. Which, yeah.
His eccentric charm really comes through.
Yes, it does. There's a lot of parallels to other things that Jedi say in the saga, too. Let's see. Where is it? He meditates to harness his force powers like Qui-Gon Jinn does before he faces Maul in Phantom Menace. Where also? Strong you are with the dark side, child, but not that strong. Mirrors strong I am with the Force, but not that strong from Return of the Jedi. Yeah, there's a lot of good references in this episode, especially to the Force characters. Deceive you eyes can. Your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them, from Obi-Wan and New Hope. Yeah. Maybe before we talk about the bigger things of the episode, we'll get the low-hanging fruit, aka the battle droid humor, out of the way. So first of all, I know one Jacob loves is, that was a terrible shot. Ah, well, it's my programming.
A good one.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so we're good. Meg, whenever you want, jump in.
Okay.
Steer us in the right direction. I don't know what it is. The battle droid humor is so it's low. It is low hanging fruit, and yet it is so funny. And I really think that maybe I'm looking way too much into it, but I really think that the way that the battle droid humor is put in, and the way that this show gives the battle droids more personality, kind of mirrors what they do to the clones to a lesser degree. And I think it also changes drastically the way that this, at least for me, in my experience, it changes the way I take in the entire, and the way I process the entire time period of the Clone Wars, including the movies, because it's so different from the it's so different from the way the battle droids are in the movies, where they're a lot more silent, but kind of monotone, and they're way more of the they're more of a mirror image to the way the clones are, where they're in the movies, where they're more uniform. They have less individuality, less personality, and I do think it increases the enjoyability of the TV show a lot. But I can't help but wonder, what would it be like if the battle droids, and I mean, what would the story feel like if the clones and the battle droids didn't get the treatment that they did in the Clone Wars?
There's this line in the Honest trailer for, I think it's episode 3, calling the clones and droids two disposable CGI armies running up against each other. And I love how the Clone Wars completely dispels that sort of myth. Jacob, I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna talk about the best line of battle droid humor throughout the entire Clone Wars series. Do I have your permission to go ahead with this?
Oh, you already said what I thought the best line was, so I think we've had a miscommunication, but go for it. Yeah.
But I just got promoted.
Oh, that's a good one too.
It's my favorite one. I laugh every time I hear it. I think we must have when talking to each other about this episode and about the Clone Wars, we must have said this line dozens of times because it's such a good line.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. Also, I just noticed another reference to a Force user, and it's actually to Yoda himself, which is he says, "Size is not everything," which is of course a reference to "Judge me by my size, do you?" So full of references this episode. Yeah. So they're going down to negotiate with Katunko, and Ventress sets up this kind of challenge where she challenges the assumption that one Jedi equals 100 battle droids.
I just want to appreciate how beautiful Rugosa is.
Yes.
The coral moon.
Yeah.
I love how the shows like the Clone Wars and Rebels and even Resistance, although it's not beloved by a lot of people who make it abundantly clear. I love the opportunities that these shows give to really just put on display the beautiful artwork, and I can't stop gushing over the environmental artwork, the backgrounds, the sunsets, the skies, the clouds that all the Star Wars animated shows give us. I just love them, and I think that I would watch it for the visual beauty alone. I think it's amazing.
Good thing we're getting a 4th animated show that'll probably provide even more of that.
Yay.
Bad type right here.
Yes, for sure.
The TV show that actually, I gotta be honest with you, I sometimes forget is happening. Because there's so many Star Wars projects happening these days that it just feels like, oh yeah, there's the Bad Batch too.
Yeah, like I honestly have forgotten that like TV is even still happening, for being honest. The way that this year is going. Before I forget, one thing I did notice before we get to the cave scene is one of the clones gets injured. And that's kind of like a callback to Clone Cadets, where like when they're training, someone gets injured and they're like, oh no, like we'll just leave them behind, let's go, and they fail because of that. So this is just like bringing that back, like, oh yeah, no man left behind, and they save him right away. I thought that was cool.
Good connection, very good connection.
Yeah, I like the way they kind of made that their priority, and I think that's one thing that we see the Empire maybe not get wrong because it's by design, but one way we see the difference in between the Republic and the Empire is the Empire saying, like, we see it in canon books. When the Stormtrooper's
down, he's down.
Yeah, we just say, if the Stormtrooper is down, you must continue with the mission, whereas the clones will always try and save their brothers and their compatriots.
Yep.
I was going to say, you know what's, one more thing before we get to the cave scene. You know what's really sad about how many times I've watched this episode? I was saying to myself, okay, I bet I can identify all 3 clones' names before I watch the episode, because that's how much I know this episode. And I got all 3 of them right. So that's how much I've watched this episode. I want to see more of all of them because we never see Jack Risk or especially Thyre. I really like Thyre. We should totally see more Thyre.
Who's the one that gets injured?
What?
Who's the one that gets injured, real quick?
I think it's Jack, but I'm not sure. I don't think it's Thyre. But anyway, let's go to the cave scene. The cave scene, I love the cave scene because it details. This is maybe one of this and Yoda scene in The Last Jedi are 2 of my favorite Yoda scenes, period, ever. Because they show, Last Jedi shows something different about Yoda, but this shows why Yoda is such a great, not just Jedi, but teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He can, what's the great leaders inspire greatness in others is the fortune cookie. And this is why that exists. Because Yoda is saying, hey, it's the opposite of brick. It's like, Brick is like, here's where you need to improve, in a very gruff, harsh voice, and Yoda's like, okay, so here is the area, it's also here are areas where you need to improve, but it's also I know you can do this. I understand. I see you and I hear you and I know you can do this. Here's where you gotta push. Here's where you gotta struggle. Here's where you gotta go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's such a. They also interpolate the Yoda theme throughout this episode, which I think is just so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It shows that however hard Kevin Kiner tries, and John Powell and Michael Giacchino and all the other people writing Star Wars scores, there's nothing like John Williams.
Yeah.
One quick thing that I realized, this is the pilot episode, but besides the movie, which I don't know what the critical reception was like at the time, but I can't imagine it had the most fanfare.
I'm waving my thumb down very hard because
yeah.
I gotta say, I know, Jacob, you hold a lot of nostalgia for the movie, but how infinitely better was this episode than the movie?
Yes, and one of the reasons I think, one thing I just want to say quickly before I cede the rest of my time for this part, because I don't have that much to say, but I think that it felt like realizing that this is going back in the first episode in real life, the first episode that was put out. I think it's a really good statement of what direction the show is headed in. I think it's a bold statement. The cave scene, especially, like we see these clones, they're going to be a focus of the show. They're not just props anymore.
Yeah.
They're people.
And there's a very good resolution of that, which is there's that line after they defeat all the tanks. Yoda says to them, where is it? It's in my notes here. Okay, learned something today, have you, Lieutenant? I think we all have, General. It's the very very good wrapping up of the arc there, where they learn that they have to sizes and everything. It's another sizes and everything. There's a line, have you three I do, outnumbered are they? And the clones look at themselves like, there are 4 of us and about 60 of them. How are they outnumbered? And we see it's because Yoda and the clones have ingenuity and quick thinking and bravery on their side, where the battle droids, just by virtue of their programming, don't.
Yeah.
Also, did anyone notice, this is another fun thing, did anyone notice that Ventress has learned a thing or two from Dooku, because she uses the exact same distraction tactic against Yoda that Dooku uses against Yoda on Geonosis in episode 2?
Yeah, I never thought about it.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Like master, like apprentice.
It's like poetry, they rhyme.
One more thing about the cave scene. I think going off of this being the pilot episode, they also really made an effort to establish that, not only is this show going to be about the clones, but it's going to be about humanizing and individualizing these clones. So not only are you going to get to see more of the clones, you're going to get to see who they are, what they stand for, and then by the time you get to season 7, what they're really struggling with, and how all that ends up. So I just love that, because the show wouldn't be what it is without that.
No, I actually just had a thought of a viewing order that would be fun. If you viewed Ambush and The Last Battle from Rebels back to back, what an emotional trip would that be? Because you see, the one of the main morals of Ambush is clones better, here's why.
Yeah.
And The Last Battle is clones better.
Fight the real enemy.
Clones better, but droids and clones set up. That would be an emotional trip. Yeah. I love this episode so much, as as you can probably guess at this point. Does anyone have anything to say about any of the 3 episodes?
I think that about wraps it up. I thought it was I think this was a strong trio we talked about here. Personally, I'm mixed on Clone Cadets. Like I think it's a good episode.
I'm mixed on
personally,
Supply Lines myself, but that's just me.
But yeah, I think two of them are some of my favorite episodes. So
we can all agree on
thrilled by
Ambush, which
that.
is good.
How do you feel overall about these episodes, Meg?
Absolutely, yeah.
I really like them. I like how like different each of them. Like it would have been interesting to do like a whole arc, but like the fact that these three were like so different, but also so interconnected at the same time with like their themes. I really like that. I think Clone Cadets was by far my favorite of these three. I just really like stories where like people are forced to work together and then they like figure out how to do it. Kind of like Alphabet Squadron, which is like the books where it's like different pilots who fly different ships have to come together and be on this squadron and like figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are and like how to make it work. I just like this also being a kid show, like obviously like adults watch it too and love it and it's great, but like I think for kids to see that like sometimes you have to work with people you don't necessarily like work well with, but you have to figure it out. I think that's a really important thing to like get into kids' heads, especially like using Star Wars to teach that lesson. I love that idea.
Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. That's what George Lucas said.
There you go.
Okay. Anyway, so before we do our 1/4 portion and we impersonate Simon Pegg some more, we changed our question about pronunciation. Sorry, Meg, for putting you through this, but we're going to put some other people through this soon, and so we wanted to ask you about this. Talked about this on so many episodes. The bounty hunter who tries to kill Padme, the first one in episode 2. How do you pronounce her name?
Okay, I'm going to try to say it and not think about how wrong I probably am. I say Zam Wessel. I don't think that's right, though.
We have
Is
vindication.
That right?
We have vindication. So here's the thing. In the bounty hunter video game, she says, "Hi, I'm Zam Wessel."
I don't like that.
She actually says that, but then everyone and their mother that I've heard says Zam Wessel. I think Jacob, you too, right?
I say Zam Wessel. That's
the
just
confusing part. The Legends Wikipedia page, the canon one doesn't have anything. The Legends one accepts both.
Well, okay, so I'm looking at the name again, and like if we're talking about like English and linguistics, there's only one S and two L's. So Wessel technically probably isn't right, but it seems right to me.
It
seems right, yeah.
To me.
Is it ever said in...
Not Attack of the Clones, in Bounty Hunters by the original actress, Leanna Wellsman. But,
Interesting. That was a good one.
Yeah. Actually, we can do that. Should we do that announcement now, Jacob? I don't know. We're probably going to discuss this soon with Devore because we're having him on the show. You can't say that yet, though, because we haven't announced it yet. We're announcing it Monday. This episode's coming out Wednesday. So, yeah. Okay, anyway. But, so, I hope you can keep it until then. You kept the AP exam in, so that's cool.
I am the keeper of secrets. I will say nothing.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Now, let's see. Yeah, before we get to the 1/4 portion, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Jacob and I last weekend, we want to do this for all the Mandalorian episodes. Did a review, a quick 5-minute review of the Mandalorian episode this week, but Jacob has not seen it.
Oh no!
So
it's okay. You can spoil it.
We can spoil it because I
there's no
told
big
him there's
reveal.
nothing groundbreaking in the episode. I've seen it though. Chapter 10, The Passenger. So here's how we usually do it. I hope you're okay with this. I usually go with Chapter 10, The Passenger was blank. I have spoken. And then we'll talk about our thoughts about the episodes because I wanted to do the Queel quote there. So Chapter 10 was weirder than I ever could have imagined it. I have spoken.
Chapter 10 was more tense than I needed it to be on that particular Friday morning when I watched it. I have spoken.
That seems pretty crazy. So, Jacob doesn't mind. Let's basically the episode revolves around Mando taking we still don't have a species for her. Everyone's calling her Frog Lady, so I'm gonna call her Frog Lady.
That's Frog what the subtitles called her, apparently.
Yeah, that's what the subtitles called her. To her homeworld where she says she's seen Mandalorians, which is interesting. But they crash on a planet and they get attacked by so many spiders. So many spiders.
I'm not afraid of spiders, but that made me extremely uncomfortable.
It was terrifying. I was just screaming at my computer when I was watching it. I'm like, he didn't do this now. I'm like, burn it with fire. That's the way you get rid of spiders. Burn it with fire. And he finally used the flamethrower. I'm like, good, do that more. Burn it with fire.
Yeah.
Also, something that no one's talking about, Trapper Wolf is back.
Oh, yeah. My favorite.
Dave Filoni is a pilot, never losing, ever. So, yeah. Let's get on to a 1/4 portion, though, because I don't want to exclude Jake from the Mando talk.
Oh, watch it soon. Okay. It's really good.
I'm planning on watching it this afternoon. I'm excited. I can't believe I had to wait this long, but I've just had a very, very busy week, so I've been kind of swamped. Yeah. But I'm getting there. I'm looking forward to it. It's the light at the end of the tunnel.
All I will say is someone needs to feed Baby Yoda.
No, somebody needs to feed Baby Yoda. Stat, man.
All I will say. No spoilers.
Stat. Somebody needs to feed Baby Yoda. This will all make sense once you watch it, Jacob. Okay.
I'm sure it will. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's do our segment. I'm going to do it. Then, Jacob, you can do it. Let's do this.
1/4 portion.
There we go. Let's do this. So this week at Star Wars Opinions, that segment that we made an entire live episode of a couple months ago. Anyway, so we asked 2 Star Wars opinionated questions. We get our answers. Let's do this. Jacob, go first, maybe.
All right. So this is going to be for each of you then. You can answer in turn. If you could direct and basically create in your vision one Star Wars movie or TV show, or really any piece of Star Wars media, what would it be and why?
Meg, you take this one. Go first because you're our guests. Go ahead.
I think we've gotten a lot of Mandalorian content, obviously with animated shows, and then this, the Mandalorian show. I want more Mandalorian stuff. So even if it's even if it would be a movie about
wars and stuff.
Yeah, we haven't gotten, in my opinion, enough of that in canon, and I love Mandalorian lore. I don't know everything about it, but I will learn and yeah.
But
exactly. Yeah. No, that would be my thing. Give me more Mandos.
Jacob, your take on this one?
Don't you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, yeah. I've said this on the show before. I want to make a mini series like the Kenobi show, but it's a mini series on Disney Plus called Episode 0: Fall of the Republic, and it's all the stuff leading up to there was a Legends novel called Cloak of Darkness, and it was all the stuff that was leading up to Episode 1. I want to do a canon miniseries, all the stuff that's leading up to Episode 1. Get Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon. I don't know what you do about Obi-Wan, but do something. Maybe do Obi-Wan's youngling days or something like that. Do everything leading up to the Phantom Menace. That's what I want to see.
So would it involve? So it would be about the politics and the
politics, the Jedi's role, signs that the Republic is moving into darker days.
I love both those ideas that you guys just put forward. I think a Mandalorian show, another one, would be awesome. I feel like there's so much potential because, all of a sudden we have the question of how come the Mandalorians aren't allowed to remove their helmets anymore? What happened to Sabine and the Ren clan and everything? How did that happen? There's so much.
What's your pick?
Oh, my pick. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot we had to answer our own questions. Okay. I would go with, I think, a Rebels follow-up show.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved
Gonna happen
Rebels.
one of
I
these days.
thought, I hope so. I really want it to include, one thing I liked about Legends, after the fall of the Empire, was the way there were a lot of splinter groups, and there was kind of endless potential there that they really took advantage of, all these different writers and artists.
Maybe a little too much, but okay.
Okay. Well, of the different splinter groups, like you had Zinj and you had Thrawn and you had the Crimson Empire, and I want to see more of that, because that seems to me more likely than just the Empire all of a sudden dissolving and the New Republic having dominion. So I think that a Rebels follow-up show would be really interesting to explore some of those ideas. Explore, there are probably going to be some warlords, fortress planets. They still have these massively destructive weapons. What happens when all of a sudden the empire that they've been fighting for crumbles, and you see some of these dangerous figures, when you see these ambitious figures who've been kept from the very, very top of the Imperial command,
Kept on the
like
leash.
these other Moffs, all of a sudden they can do their own thing. What would that look like? It would be really dangerous and scary, but I want to see that. I think that would be really interesting. That's what I want to see. That's my fantasy.
Good pick. Okay, my first question. With the success with people's general enjoyment, this question was written before the Passenger, but after the Marshal, because everyone's loved the Marshal. I couldn't believe how much universal love there was for the Marshal. There was a evaluation of the topic that's been talked about in the Star Wars fandom for the last 3 years, which is, and I'm going to ask this question to both of you. Should Star Wars' future be in movies or TV?
I have strong opinions about this.
Me too, honestly.
I think Star Wars TV is going to be more important going forward than it ever has been before. I think there will still be movies and they'll be great, but I think those movies can serve to set the groundwork for shows, because the thing about TV shows is they can tell a broader story. They can introduce more characters, which can then branch off into other things, other shows, other books, whatever they want to do with that. But also there's just the potential to have multiple shows happening either at the same time, or they end up alternating. So you have one season of something and then in the off season of that there's something else. Just the fact that there would be more Star Wars and it be more impactful just to expand the universe. I think yeah.
Jacob is probably inclined to agree with you there, but I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I think, Meg, you brought up a lot of good points. You kind of took some of the words right out of my mouth. I think that given the track record of what we've seen in the past few years, of the way the movies have been received with a lot more controversy, and then the way the shows have been received, I think at this point, I think the shows, from the animated shows going into The Mandalorian, them coming up with, this is highly speculative, but them going forward with fan favorite characters like Kenobi, and I hope there's going to be more things like that. I think that overall those shows have a much better track record with the core fan base and the enthusiastic people, without trying to be the hugest, most popular blockbusters talk of the town. So I think that there definitely will be a space for movies, but I think that overall, I think TV shows, at least from my perspective, I've been more enthusiastic about the TV shows, and they feel like the people who are really invested the most in Star Wars, like some of these great directors that we've seen, and new people and old people like Dave Filoni. We've seen Jon Favreau coming in, Deborah Chow came in, Taika Waititi. I'm definitely forgetting, but I just feel like we're seeing the most creativity in TV shows. So definitely TV. I agree with Meg.
So Jacob probably gets my opinion on this by now, but I'm going to disagree. I think Star Wars future should be in movies. Now, I don't actually disagree with a lot of what you guys said, I think my thing is, if Star Wars continues how Star Wars is doing, like how Star Wars was doing like a couple years ago, like a year ago, where we get our movies in like every other year or something like that, and we get TV shows in the off times. There can be more TV shows, but I do think that the movie should be the backbones. And maybe I'm a little stubborn about this, but I think Star Wars started as a movie franchise, and I think it'd be wrong to not continue it as a movie franchise. But that's just me. If basically mine is, it's not like directly disagreeing with you guys. I think it's like, if we keep things the way they're going right now, or like probably, or like really a year ago, that would make me happy. That's just me though.
I think movies could work a lot better in the future if they did more like solo movies and didn't constantly
anthology movies.
Try to
yes,
do.
I'm on board.
Yeah. So like if it wasn't always a trilogy, I think that would do better. Also, the fact that they're not trying to wrap up 40 years of storytelling in 3 movies. I think they're going to be able to handle it a lot better. There was the whole thing with like, it really felt like they were rushing through trying to finish this story, and it really hurt that trilogy a lot. I have my problems with it, but I also liked it. But that was one thing that really was obviously a problem. I think movies, especially now that they have a little bit more time to think about it because of the delays that they're working with now, they really can plan better and not only coordinate like the movies with the shows, but like really, really think about like, what are the stories we want to tell in movies going forward. I think if they figure that out and everyone works together on that, movies could, have the potential to be really, really, really good and really important.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm probably the one that's most positive about the sequels here, because I feel like I kind of grew up with them and they're kind of my Star Wars the most. But like, even I will admit that they weren't the most widely received, the best received. The Last Jedi. Not a lot of hardcore fans like really digged it. There are some hardcore fans who really digged it, and some that didn't. I'm sitting with, I think, 2 different sides of that in this room right here. But not the Discord anyway. And I know that the Rise of Skywalker wasn't a lot of people's favorites. I disagree with that, but that's just me. But I think if they get good creators, if they get, I think Taika Waititi and Christy Wilson Carnes, I think is her name, are doing those Star Wars movies. I think that's going to be interesting. I'm really interested for what Rian Johnson does. I'm really interested in there was another person, Leslie Headland.
Oh yeah.
Is she a TV show or is she a movie? I think she's a TV show. Never mind.
But still.
But anyway, yeah. I think if they get these people with visions, I think that they can make some really fantastic movies. Okay, Jacob, did you change the question, or are you still going to do that question?
Oh, I'm going to do it.
Okay, Palpatine.
Okay, if you were a Jedi in Order 66 and you managed to escape the first wave of clones trying to backstab you, where would you go to hide?
That's why I go.
What would be your hidey hole?
Where would I go?
I'd bank on Kashyyyk.
Really?
Interesting.
I'd hide among the Wookiees like Quinlan Voss did in Legends, like Kento Merrick did in Legends. I just finished playing The Force Unleashed 2. Wow, was that an interesting game? But from Force Unleashed 1, we know that Kento Merrick, the father of Galen Merrick, aka Yuri Stu. Sorry. Anyway, but he hid among the Wookiees. He wasn't actually that successful, but Quinlan Voss was successful, and he and his wife and his kid lived among the Wookiees, and I think it worked. So, Kashyyyk. Palpatine.
Interesting. Okay. Meg, where would you go?
So, like, everyone always thinks that, like, going to, like, some remote planet where you can never be found would be, like, the best option. I would just go to, like, a planet that's, like, super busy and, like, the one place that you'd never look because you wouldn't expect me to be, like, just right there. I would go there because,
Coruscant?
like, maybe not. Well, okay, maybe not Coruscant, but, like, maybe not very far away. Like, they expect all the Jedi to, like, go far
on a
away.
swamp
Maybe,
planet or something.
yeah, maybe I just wouldn't. I'd be like, hey, I'm right here, but you don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That's really interesting. I think that brings up a question of it's a trade-off. Do you want to go somewhere so remote, so unknown, like Dagobah, where the Empire might never find you, or
But you
would
can
but
use the
it would
Force.
be, but they would never find you. But also, if they do find you, there's kind of nowhere to run because there's no one else there. Or do you go somewhere where you could get lost,
But you can't use
you
the
could
Force.
also be found, but it would be easier to then get lost again because there's just so many people around.
Also, if there's
Yeah,
a dangerous
exactly.
situation, even on a roughly populated, like on a decently populated planet, as we saw in Jedi Fallen Order, they tracked down Cal pretty quickly after he used the Force. So
I was thinking about this. I don't really have a good answer yet, unfortunately. So I was thinking maybe I would go to Rakata Prime and try and unearth ancient Sith secrets to help defeat the Empire.
I don't believe it. Is this Jacob's obsession with Rocket Prime? Skyrocket
Many years
back up.
ago, I used to be obsessed with the planet Rakata Prime because I loved oceans and I thought it was super cool and awesome, and I still kind of have a soft spot for it. So yeah, I think I'd go to
I'm playing
Rakata Prime.
KOTOR right now, and I'm excited
Maybe-
about getting there. So
Use the Sith's own use the Sith's own like techniques and just turn the tables. Go straight to the heart. No, I would go to no. I would go to Korriban or to Malachor or to Zyos to use the dark energies to mask the Jedi Force
Is that
presence,
canon?
so they wouldn't be able to
Mm.
tell. There we go. That's what I did.
There you go.
Is Zyas canon? I'm not sure.
I don't think Zyos is canon, but I think it's an interesting planet. So
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say sure it's
I don't
Zyos.
have any problem with that. Okay, my question. Here we go. I'm excited about this. I was thinking about this earlier today. So one of the things Star Wars is the most famous for is the lightsaber duels. And my question is, if you could get two characters and they have to be Force users, who have never fought in a Star Wars movie, and they could be in the lightsaber duel together, who would you go with? It happens actually. This would be an interesting one. This happens a lot in Battlefront games, but can we see a Rey and Darth Maul duel?
Ooh.
Though I'd be extremely
Yeah.
biased against that in that duel because there's a character that I hate in that duel, and there's a character that I love in that duel. So, yeah. My answer of who would win that one would be extremely one-sided because I love Rey and I hate Maul. So,
You know what? We never got to see Mace Windu and Anakin go at it. Whether as Darth Vader or Anakin, like they butted heads so much. I want to see that. Like, I want to see them just like go for it.
Yeah.
That would be
I would like
That
that.
would be a fun duel. If I think there's a decent case that like if it's Mace Windu versus Anakin, I want to say it's pretty one-sided and then Mace takes it. But if it's Mace versus Vader, then it gets more complicated.
Yeah.
And like what Anakin's like, light side Anakin, I don't think stands a chance against Mace. Dark side Anakin, I could see arguing he might. Vader, I could see beating Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone I would want to see. This could be wildly imbalanced, so I'm not sure from which era of each. But I would love to see a Ezra and Luke face off. Maybe Ezra at the very end of season 4.
Yeah, if you put Ezra at the end of season 4 and Luke at Empire Strikes Back, that's a fair
I think that
fight
would be
right
an
there.
interesting duel.
I would say it would be tipped towards Ezra if you do Empire Strikes Back, Luke. But if you do Return of the Jedi, Luke, then Luke takes it by far. The fun one would be Ezra season 1 versus Luke New Hope.
Oh man.
Like before he's a Jedi, like Spark of Rebellion Ezra versus the two Force sensitive young kids who don't know they're Force sensitive yet, but are.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of In a Galaxy. Thanks to Meg for hopping on and talking some Clone Wars with us. You can find her at Meg Dowell on Twitter. At Youtini_us is Youtini on Twitter. At PROJ_Stardust is Project Stardust. And Starberdon is just at Starberdon, right? Did I get all those correct?
You did.
Yes. Okay. And you can find us. We are on. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us right there. Follow us on Twitter at InAGalaxyPod. Email us swinagalaxy@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Next week we are discussing the Malevolence arc, Rising Malevolence, Shadow Malevolence, and Destroy Malevolence with Jared the Dark Jedi from the Nerd Academy podcast. I'm excited for that. The week afterwards, we just announced this on Twitter a day ago when we post this. We're going to be doing an interview like the one we did with Meg a couple months ago with Devore, who's the host of A Large Review of the Force, the podcast, which is awesome. We love his show, and we're so excited to be getting to talk to him about that. Am I missing anything, Jacob, that you can think of?
No, yeah. Thank you so much, Meg, for coming on.
Thanks,
I had a great
Meg,
time.
for coming around. May the Force be with you always.